November 23rd, something bad happens in Malaysia. A huge crime syndicate was just uncovered, causing public outcry in social media. An activist named Datuk Nazim Johan from Muslim Consumers Association, alongside with a local news portal Sinar Harian, exposes the crime. And the crime was now called
Kartel daging import haram.
Haram kartel daging.
Kartel daging haram
Isu kartel tukar daging haram menjadi halal
masih disiasat pihak berkaitan.
Disyaki terbabit kegiatan rasuah.
Logo halal JAKIM yang telah pun turut dirampas dan disita kerana ini diprint semula oleh pihak syarikat terbabit.
Siapa syarikat tersebut? Sebut! Tak boleh telefon SSM. Tanya syarikat apa? Kalau SSM tak ada, tanya pegawai custom. Siapa yang tanda tangan dokumen-dokumen pelepasan? Untuk mengetahui semua, yang disita baru-baru ini adalah 1,500 tan berjumlah 30 juta. Tetapi yang telah tersebar di seluruh Malaysia ni kita tak tahu berapa banyak.
Before we deep dive into the issue, we have to understand the context of Malaysia meat industry and its population. Here is a graph that shows beef and veal consumption per capita from the year 2006 to 2019. As you can see, 2019, on average, a Malaysian consumed about 5.22 kilograms of beef and veal. According to the estimate, we may see a continued growing trend of meat consumption until the year 2025. As more and more people consuming beef, fresh local farms are unable to meet the high demands. One of the reasons is stagnation happening in the domestic production. In fact, the domestic meat production have been declining in recent years, thus affect the supplies in the market. As the meat demand continues to grow, so do the prices for the locally produced fresh meat. Hence, the locals have to resort to another option for meat consumption, and that option is coming from overseas. A study conducted by a local research center, according to industry players, the high accessibility of imported frozen meat and its lower selling price may have reduced the demand of fresh domestic beef. But there has been no scientific publication about the claim. However, between 2015 and 2017, import beef entry into Malaysia are the highest in volume and value. As the local demands continue to rise, import beef are one of the most lucrative import products in Malaysia. But what all of this got to do with the recent meat cartel syndicate? And how does it impact overall Malaysians? Malaysia is a country with a population of 32 million. Among the population, about 61.3% is Muslim, making them the majority religion in this country. Therefore, when it comes to food consumption, especially beef, Muslims are the top in the food chain. Unlike non-Muslim, Muslims can only eat halal meat, and the meat itself usually came from Muslim slaughterhouse. In Islam, during slaughtering process, they have to follow accordance to Hukum Syarak, where one of its criteria is the animal was killed through a cut to jugular vein, carotid artery, and windpipe. The other criteria for a slaughtering process are: the animal must be healthy and alive, all blood is drained from the carcasses, the knife must be sharp and clean, and usually the process was accompanied with recital of prayers. There are a few more other criteria that needs to be fulfilled, but here are some of the general ones. Before it was sold to consumer, the meat usually will comes with a stamp of halal logo and certification to ensure the meat legitimacy. Halal certification was usually issued by a government agency called Department of Islamic Development, or JAKIM in short. Their role is to ensure any forms of meat must be go through them, ensuring the meat are deemed safe and clean to be eaten by Muslim. But what does all this whole process have got to do with the recent meat cartel syndicate? The usual process of importing frozen meat from foreign countries started from the JAKIM and Department of Veterinary Services, or DVS in short. JAKIM role is to ensure the process of meat is halal, while DVS role is to check the meat hygienic, safety, and free from any forms of diseases. The process goes when JAKIM and DVS will send their officers to these respective countries to observe whether the process itself does meet up with the requirements. If the process does meet up with the requirements, the products will be processed, packaged locally before it was shipped to Malaysia, where it will be sold to locals. According to government, there are a total of 28 approved slaughterhouses located in 9 countries. Those 9 countries are Argentina, Brazil, South Africa, United States, Pakistan, India, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan. The story goes when the cartel started importing the meat to Malaysia from the non-certified sources. The cartel started up the whole syndicate by setting up a proxy company. It is believed that the companies were set up by a non-Bumiputra cartel. In order to convince the locals and Muslim buyers to make meat purchases from them, this company camouflaged themselves using the names of Bumiputra or Muslim or set up a Bumiputra individual as company directors. It was understood that the cartel doesn't just set up one, but many companies across Malaysia. The role of this proxy company is to make meat purchases from these non-certified sources, which later on will be shipped back to Malaysia through shipping containers. Those meat are believed to be coming from Canada, Mexico, Colombia, Bolivia, Paraguay, Uruguay, United Kingdom, Spain, China, and Hong Kong. Most of the meat came from these sources had lower cost purchasing value. This is due to the meat made are from dead corpses or the meat had been tainted with diseases. If follow the Hukum Syarat requirement, this meat will be deemed as dirty, which should not be consumed by any Muslims. Knowing that the meat is tainted, the meat was stored in the shipping container, which eventually shipped it to Malaysia. In order to avoid suspicion from the authorities, the company also made meat purchases from certified sources. When the containers arrived at the port, the cartels had to find a way to bypass the meat into Malaysia without going through tedious process at port. It was reported that between 300 to 400 containers, such as this one, which originate from non-certified processing plant, sent it to Malaysia. According to sources, up to 25 tons of frozen meat in each container have been imported to Malaysia every month. To put that into perspective, that's about the weight of 4 African elephants in every single container. Such a massive quantity of item volume usually difficult to get approval by the custom of Malaysia. Plus, the container must also attach with proper official documents to confirm its legitimacy before entering the country. To ensure the container passed the custom without any suspicion, the cartel worked closely with the officers and local authorities. The cartel also falsified numbers of documents such as custom form, import permit, halal certificate, and payment receipt. The custom officer that in charge of the shipping process was also given bribe in the form of money and sex, ensuring them they were turning a blind eye on this. As the container had passed the custom, the container was sent to a heavily guarded factory not far from the port to be processed. The factory was completely equipped with industry tools such as meat cutting machine and sorting machinery. In order to trick the buyers, the box was stamped with a fake brand logo, halal logo, serial number, and barcode to make it look like exactly the original. Due to low purchasing value of the tainted meat, the cartel able to reprocess, repackage the meat, and sell it back at higher values in local groceries and supermarkets, making tons of profit out of it. There was a series of allegations of meat contamination from other animals. A report suspected that animals like kangaroos and horses was mixed with the meat during the importation, although this claim was later on denied after a series of lab tests. What makes it even shocking is that this has been going on for 40 years, undetected due to a series of cover-ups, bribing, and corruption among the officials. And this incident wasn't just affected the Muslims community, as well as non-Muslim which may have purchased and consumed this tainted meat. Newsweek Times reporter highlights that there are 5 government agencies that may be responsible for this problem: JAKIM, DVS, Malaysia Quarantine and Inspection Service, Royal Malaysia Customs Department, and Royal Malaysian Police. Due to this incident, it was reported that the government had lost about 1.5 million ringgit a month. What makes this incident so sad is that this is not the first time such thing happens in Malaysia. Authorities and officers had to play a stricter role of becoming the main filter of the goods that enters the country, putting the nation as the first interest, ensuring the supplies that we get from shops and supermarkets are from legitimate and certified sources. What makes it even sadder is that Malaysia was consistently one of the top countries being the main halal hub in the world, potentially bringing in more investment into the country. But where such incident happens in Malaysia, the image and integrity of being the main halal house certainly is in doubt. The issue here is not about whether we had a security screening problem, smuggling problem, communication problem, shipping problem, nor whether the meat is halal or not. The main roots of the issue here lies on the culture of rampant corruption and bribing. As long as the culture of bribing and corruption is still exists, this incident will be going to happen again, and certainly will not be the last we're going to see.